All right, New York, the Tuskegee Airmen come to New York Law School. Dean Crowell, we're here, and we're here to dedicate this wall.
Thank you so much, Judge Whiten. I am extremely excited about this. This is something that has been in the making for more than 2 years, and something that just before the pandemic took hold, we were planning on unveiling, and that was an unfortunate delay, but we are no less proud today than we were at that moment, and the excitement to do this has been building. This is a very important moment for us. We thought that this display, this wall, would have extraordinary significance because, as we discussed it, Judge Whiten said to me, there's a hall of superheroes. And we couldn't think of any group of superheroes more fitting, more deserving to be in this amazing space that serves to remind us of the importance of heroes in bringing about justice and serving as an example for what we can do when we all collectively work together for equity, compassion, and a better world for all. So this represents so much at an important time in our nation's history, where all that COVID has laid bare in terms of the gross inequities that we see, and also America's racial reckoning. And we need to focus on ensuring that everyone, particularly our youth, but everyone understands the history of race and racism in our country, and of those heroes who were role models for all of us to fight for a better and more just world. And so we welcome this wonderful group of young people here today. And certainly this serves as a wonderful reminder for all the young people who come to study at New York Law School in pursuit of justice in their careers as lawyers.
Right.
So thank you for your brilliance in thinking of this, Judge Whiten.
My pleasure.
So appreciative.
It's a day of fruition that makes me extremely proud and happy. And what I really want to do, because this wall has been here for so long and not officially dedicated, is I want to see us cut that ribbon and make it a official permanent part of New York Law School. Our history, our psyche, our students' frame of reference, and their inspiration, I hope, in the way that they will practice law. So I'm going to ask Dean Crowell and Dennis Creary to join us in cutting the ribbon.
Guys, thank you. Good job.
Dennis, if you'll enter on that side. Go ahead. All right. Give me a sharp scissor.
Coming from the bottom.
Okay, we're coming from the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody ready? Now, when we cut this, we got to hear you.
Yes, a loud cheers.
Is it on 3?
All
I guess we could do like a 3, 2, 1.
right, we will look to the scouts to do a 3, 2, 1 for us.
Okay.
Ready?
3, 2, 1.
And if someone wants some of you would like a sample or parts of the ribbon, I'm going to cut a few
That's a
more
really great
I'll do
idea.
part of the ribbon.
so that you can have it.
Wait,
Red ribbon, it's also Air Force ribbon.
You got it.
I was wondering if I could
Stay on the side, stay on the
It's in
side,
history.
stay on the side.
I wondered if I could still see.
Absolutely.
I might want to attach this to my.
Don't worry, we'll get it off the floor. Okay. Okay, which scout wants, we'll go over to the Judge White.
Oh, you're doing double.
There you are. Okay,
Come on, Michael Judge.
Who wants an Air Force ribbon?
Yeah, you do.
Air Force ribbon, Air
I
Force
want
ribbon,
this.
Air Force ribbon.
Okay, we have more.
We'll deal the rest of it now. You got it sorted. Judge has got it all sorted out. There you go.
Okay, oh, I guess the folks on the live stream can't see it. Who would like a piece of ribbon? This is history.
Yeah.
This is history.
I'll have a second one, I guess.
Okay.
Coming for seconds?
Yeah.
Share it with your friends.
Okay.
Jacket.
All right. Okay, we thank you for participating in the ribbon cutting. And what we're going to do now is take a short break. The live stream will continue, but there will be a video showing until we can reestablish ourselves for the program that will follow and the wonderful remarks that we expect to have. And also a visit from one of our still living Tuskegee Airmen. You don't want to miss that. So please stand by.
My name is Reagan Watson. My great-great-grandfather was Victor Terrellon, and he was a Tuskegee Airman, and I'm so proud of him.
My name is Dr. Virginia Lawrence Mayo Hardy. My dad is still Lieutenant Colonel Clayton F. Lawrence. Hi, my name is Tina Lawrence, actually Christina Yvonne Lawrence, and I am the youngest of my father, Lieutenant Colonel Clayton F. Lawrence.
My name is Mark Whiten. I'm the son of Joseph D. Whiten, who was in the 477 bomber group. My uncle was George Arnold Lynch. He was in the 99th Squadron, that being the Red Tails.
My name is Dr. Darlene DeFore. My father is Dr. Wilfred DeFore.
My name is Amelia Montgomery, and I was married to Dabney Montgomery, Tuskegee Airmen Dabney Montgomery.
I'm Pat Tarrelong, and I am the president of the Floyd Vigo and Tri-State Chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen. And we welcome you. We are so pleased to have you with us today because you make a difference in our children getting those scholarships. And I thank you for it. You make the difference. Straighten Up and Fly Right was written and performed by the Nat King Cole Trio in 1943 during the height of World War II and became the unofficial theme song for a group of young men who were dedicated and determined to become America's first black military airmen. Just like the monkey on the buzz's back, as the song goes, the famed Tuskegee Airmen had to display an attitude, authority, and austerity as they faced immeasurable odds to become experts in all areas of the Army Air Corps, because remember, it was segregated. Their contributions contributed to the victory in Europe in places like Freeman Field. All that in spite of the fact they were told their brains were too small, that they lacked the intelligence and skills. They became revered, feared, and admired by their allies and foes alike because they believed in themselves and the possibility of this nation.
I remember when he used to tell me stories. He lift me up and place me gently on his knee. You know his eyes would come alive with every tale he told, and every word he said was gold to me. Said he was lucky as a young man, got to live his childhood fantasy. When the battle has begun. ride on silver wings across the sky. Let me try to live. We can make a difference if we work together. Let me fly. I asked him all about his red-tailed airplane. He used to roam the skies of Italy, making sure that every friend would make it through the fire, and he never let one fall into the sea.
As one man said, when a relative is sick, you hold their hand until they're better. They came from every section of the country, with large numbers coming from New York City, Washington, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, and a few Caribbean nations. Each young man possessed a strong personal desire to serve his country at the best of his ability. Well, endurance and excellence is the key to survival. The double victory that the Pittsburgh Courier called for in other black newspapers throughout this country was continued by these very men who fought for jobs in the boardrooms. They fought in the streets with Dr. Martin Luther King, with Malcolm X, and courtrooms around America. Their World War II motto, "To the stars through adversity," built their reputation and is just as relevant today as it was when they helped the Allies defeat the Nazis 71 years ago. Through their service and sacrifice and achievements, the Tuskegee Airmen were part of a major change in our society, which the members of our chapter continue through with continuing the legacy, serving yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
What you tend to find is that as the child of a Tuskegee Airman, you have a legacy to live up to. Your parents may be gone, but you know the standards that they set. And you know that these men, they went out and they simply lived lives of dignity in the face of indignity. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. That's how they survived. And that's how they fought the civil rights and for civil rights. And that's how they did what was so important and made a way for us, set a standard. And that's why we all try as best we can to live up to that standard, to achieve and to do it in a way that is acceptable and effective. That was the Tuskegee Airmen. And that's why we're all here today, and that's why we'll continue to support and revere these men as long as we remember their names.
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. When I was a youngster living in Glen Cove, New York, and I used to look up in the skies and see the planes flying out from Mitchell Field and whatnot, etc. When I was a junior in high school, etc. And watching the planes fly out and knowing there were no black pilots flying those planes.
Air Force Squadron is made up of 65 officers, pilots, co-pilots, navigators, and tactical officers. In my squadron, 65 officers. 64 of them were white. The 65th officer was black. I was black day as I am today. I was the only black officer in the squadron, and I was the commander. And I want to say this. They said that Negro men did not have the intelligence to serve in the Army Air Force. They said we didn't have the coordination. And to add insult to injury, they said you can't even teach a black man to fly a military airplane. Well, for instance, I was an instructor pilot, graduated as a navigator, graduated as a bombardier, and I graduated as a pilot. I was an instructor pilot. They say we couldn't be taught. I taught white men to fly an airplane in every nation on earth.
Was to support them. My outfit was an outfit of technicians. We could do anything, fix any aircraft in the world, you might say. We were technicians and we were very proud of it. Finally, I was released from the Army Administration School. I was there as an instructor, but I knew that my outfit was going overseas soon, and I wanted to stay with my outfit. Get it ready. And that's what happened. When we went overseas, I was assigned to the engineering office of the 366 Air Service Squadron. I was a technical sergeant at the time. And when it comes to Army administration, I'm your guy.
You know, the rule was at Tuskegee that you could not be married until you graduated. So in fact, my father, Joseph D. Whiten, was married to my mother on graduation day. And after that, while he trained, which was for a long time throughout different locations in Alabama, the ladies would then live with them, and they would find things to do, such as shopping in the local towns. It was their practice to stop by this little shack place that had sandwiches. They would get sandwiches and get on the bus and go back to their house. One day, there was so much rain coming down, it was so stormy, that they ordered some sandwiches and they decided they would eat in. At that point, the counter person told them, well, you know, you can't eat here. So the ladies, being careful people, they didn't get into an arguing match. They simply ordered more. And once it was all lined up on the counter, they simply walked outside when the bus arrived, got on the bus, and left that food sitting on the counter. Their husbands, they weren't the type that were going to go back and get into a fight with anyone. That's the greatest way to get thrown out of the program and thrown out of the military, especially in Alabama. And maybe other things could have happened. But what they did do, a story my father tells, or told, was that they went back that night, the husbands of those women, they found that shack, and they simply took it apart. They took the walls down, they took the roof off, and they laid it aside. They left the counter, they didn't break a glass. But the next morning, I suppose, when the owner came in, who wasn't going to allow those ladies to eat in his establishment, he didn't really have to worry about that anymore, because it was then an open-air establishment. But this was one of the ways in which the Tuskegee Airmen used a different approach at dealing with the racism that they faced in Alabama.
And it was a great adventure. A great adventure. Being with all the fellows my age, many fellows my age, wanting to do and be the same thing. And I remember on D-Day, okay, I went down to the flight line, and when I saw those black pilots fly over and buzz the field, I was really thrilled and excited for what I saw, etc. So I guess that was the beginning. And an important part of it was that all the wonderful young men, black men I met there, okay, aspiring to do the same thing. And we had to get over that racist hurdle, okay. And that was the main thing, the racist hurdle. Because when we thought about it, etc., we talked about the Germans and whatnot and how racist and bigoted they were, etc. And while at the same time, they were doing the same thing here in America. And the blacks were the victims of that. So I guess that was the beginning, okay, to get involved in what America is now, what America was then, and the fight and the struggle, okay, to bring equality to America. And they said that because your skin is black, you can't be It's just as good as doing anything as anybody else. And that was the main thing. So it has been a long adventure. I've met a lot of wonderful young men, etc. And it was a long time ago. And we've come a long ways, etc. Come a long way so far that even then I never thought I would see a black president, okay, in my lifetime. But I did. I guess it was a big deal when Jackie Robinson went into baseball, professional baseball. That was a step forward. But since then, okay, we've made many steps forward. Okay, we've come a long way. And behind it all was the performance, not at all, most of it, okay, was the performance of the Tuskegee Airmen, which could not be denied.
One of the things that I remember him telling me was when he and a good friend of his, Dr. Shirley Clinton, who I found out maybe a couple of years ago that he had passed away, were in Tuskegee. They decide that they're going to go to a church service. They're dressed in their military outfits, so it's obvious that they're in the service. So they go to the church. They meet some people from the community. People from the community invited them over to have dinner. And anybody who's been in the service knows that when people from the community invite you over to dinner, go, because you're going to get a good meal, especially Southern cooking. Okay, so they go, leave the church, they go to get on a bus. Both of them are from the north. So they get on the bus and they sit down, as they thought, sit down in the front. And then the driver looks at them and says, "You boys got to get to the back." And they said they looked at each other, like, what is this? What is he talking about? And then, "Did you hear me? You got to get to the back." So my father said they stood like they wanted to do something, and then they realized that they couldn't. So they went and got to the back of the bus.
And he went, and it was funny, he was in the same convoy with Mr. DeFore, but they didn't know each other. But they did find out that they were a part of the same group. And he was assigned to, as I said, the 1051st Quartermaster, and he ran the warehouse there with the food and the clothing. And he said the experience was wonderful. Just, they had the little stuff on the side, but overall, his experience was good. He had to transport German soldiers, German prisoners rather, and he said that what got to him was they were I don't know where it was, that they were on a train and the black soldiers had to be in the back and the German soldiers were in the front. And he said, well, wait a minute, this does not go well with me, but that was the way it was.
It's a funny story. I was at Harvard University working on my doctorate, and I was complaining and crying and moaning on the phone to him about how hard it was. And that's when he told me about his experience at Tuskegee. His goal was to get me to understand that I could do it, that I had the right, quote unquote, right stuff. And it worked. It worked.
Because I believe that we're seeing history repeat itself. Some of the things that what they fought against, we're seeing reoccurrences of some things that happened during that time period. The internment camps with Japanese Americans, so we're seeing some similar kinds of things occurring. So we can't forget our history, because again, we repeat. If you forget it, you repeat it. And so we don't want what they've accomplished to go away.
Here was a group of people, men and women, because as you know, there were women, that served this country under such a horrific time. What it means to me is that I wasn't that a part of that group, but what it means that if I can keep the legacy going, that our youth will be, constantly made aware of who these people were and are, those that are still alive. It's very meaningful to me to, it was no question what I was going to do if he passed before me, that I would continue on with what he would have done if he was still here. So I know how important it was to him and what it meant to him, and I just could not step aside and let it go away, because it exists. I mean, this is some history. We're talking about history, and history that now people are becoming aware of. Can't let it die. When Red Tails came out,
Scouts, attention! May everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Face the flag. For all those not in uniform, please place your hand over your heart. All others, Scout salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On my honor,
I will do my best to do my duty, to guard my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally and morally straight.
Scout sign, Scout law. Scout is
trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Scouts, right face. Scouts, dismissed.
Everyone may be seated. I'd like to welcome everyone who was on the live stream back from our short break. Hope you enjoyed the video. And I'd like to, at this point, invite Dean Anthony Crowell of New York Law School to give you opening remarks. Dean Crowell.
Thank Thanks so much, Judge White, I appreciate it. We would not be here today without your vision and leadership, and we're truly privileged to call you not only a graduate of New York School from the class of 1984, but also someone who is a member of our Board of Trustees, a former president of our Alumni Association, and now special advisor with me in helping with so many different matters, ensuring that the students who come through these doors have extraordinary opportunities to contribute in the most meaningful ways in public service the way you have your entire career. So thank you for all you do. And for bringing to us today many different aspects of your world. The Tuskegee Airmen and the Claude Beethoven chapter is as important to you, Scouting is important to you, and the law school, of course, is a second home. So thank you. I really appreciate it. As Judge Whiten said, I'm Anthony Crowd, the Dean of President here at the law school, and it is truly an honor to host this event to commemorate the heroic and historic Tuskegee Airmen. It is an extraordinary opportunity for us today to do that which we sought to do 2 years ago in dedicating our display in our Hall of Superheroes. I feel that the Hall of Superheroes is far more complete than it once was, now that our display honoring the brave men of the Tuskegee Airmen is in full view of our entire community now that we are back in regular operations after the pandemic. I can say to you that it is a very challenging time for us here at the law school. As you can imagine, trying to deliver a first-rate education in masks and at distance is difficult, but the pursuit of justice and the extraordinary commitment and passion that our students show each and every day is something that I think is reflected in the meaning and sentiment in what we've put forward with this new display. Our students have a real social justice mission. They're passionate about racial justice. And as we look back, COVID has laid bare so many of the gross inequities in the United States, a country that has so much power and promise, but has not delivered on that promise the way it should. And it's a moment for us with national racial reckoning undergoing. It's a moment for us to think back, to properly look at history, and to use history as a real guide, a guide that will take us forward and to ensure that there's equity and opportunity for everyone, and human dignity and respect. So the bravery, the resilience, the patriotism of the Tuskegee Airmen serves as a reminder for all of us of a hard-fought battle that has happened, but one that is still very much underway. So I can't think of a more fitting place than at a law school to ensure that our students have this history and remember the sacrifice and the heroism of these brave souls. So with that, I will ask Judge White to come back, and I thank you again, sir, for all you do and for your vision and wisdom here at the law school, and for allowing us to put this in our Hall of Superheroes. It's truly extraordinary.
Thank you, Dean Crowd. Before you leave, during the last 18 months or so, New York Law School, as all educational institutions, have faced challenges unprecedented in our lifetimes. During this pandemic, while some schools shut down or ceased operation or produced operation that was not up to the standard that had usually been afforded their students, this school did not. This school rose above and provided the education that it promised its students. And a lot of that was because of the staff, the professors, the support staff, and all of the people that make this school run. But most of it, oh, and I should also mention our Board of Trustees, because they stood behind us and made sure that the financial necessities of running an institution like this would still be there. You got to put the lights on, even if times are tight and tough. But most importantly of all, Dean Crowd, Anthony Crowd, stood as a beacon He believed in our ability to continue as a ongoing institution, giving the highest level of legal education to our students. He believed that even though we were in a pandemic, we could raise our standards, within the legal community as a law school, raise our pass rate on the bar, which is one of those measures that law schools are measured by. And he made that our mission and his mission. And guess what? He was successful. New York Law School was successful. And I think it may have taken a couple of years off his life. He's a little shorter than he was 18 months ago. But we are so lucky here at New York Law School to have this man leading us. And so when you thank me, sir, I can.
Thank you. It's totally a team effort. We have a great number of our team members here, so we'll recognize them throughout the night.
Okay.
Thanks.
I want to recognize Antonio Del Rosario. You may have noticed the color guard. And he is the Scoutmaster of Troop 662. He's also a member of the Manhattan Council Scouting Board. In his day job, he's a licensed real estate broker at Brown Harris Stevens. He's one of the major movers within the real estate industry in the city of New York. And we're lucky to have him involved in scouting and involved in our program today. Antonio has put together a composite color guard that was comprised of a number of scouts from different units. There are scouts and cubs. They're represented here are Troop 662, Troop 1G, which is a girl unit, Troop 5, Pack 290, and Pack 662. Now, you may have noticed that they were seamless in their color guarding duties. They opened our program perfectly, even though they're not together every week. Scouts learn how to do that. They learn how to work together. They learn how to come together and have a mission and make the mission. That's what you gentlemen did today. You made the scouting program proud. You made your units proud. And to Scoutmaster Antonio Del Rosario, we're very proud of you. So thank you for being here today. At this point, I'm supposed to call on the historian for Claude B. Govan Tri-State Tuskegee Airmen Chapter. And that is the group that I am a member of, and we have members of that chapter here today. Unfortunately, Michael, who is the historian, could not be here because he called me earlier today. Apparently his wife had some symptoms overnight. She's been tested and there's some concern that she may have COVID. Based upon that, he did not come. So I must introduce the video. So here's a video. No, I'll say a little more than that. I had asked Michael to give a little context to who the Tuskegee Airmen were, the historical context, because that's important. A lot of people haven't heard of them, and that is a crime. And at the Claude B. Govan chapter, what we do is keep that history alive, making sure that these heroes, these true American heroes, are not forgotten, and that their lessons are not forgotten. And that's why we work so hard, and we're happy that those who join us today here and also on the live stream, hopefully you'll learn some things, and hopefully you will be committed also to keeping this history alive and to maybe donating to help keep it alive. We're not about taking donations. That's all good. It takes finances to run anything. Well, let me talk a little bit about the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. During World War II, our developed world was not in a good place. We were perched upon a tipping point between Western democracies and self-determined countries and a fascist axis committed to world domination. The United States was a progressive democracy, but by no means a beacon of equality. Blacks, Asians, women, and others were clearly relegated to second-class citizenship at best. It is all the more heroic that in the face of a fascist challenge to our country, black young men and women would step forward, and even though knowing that they were likely going to be relegated to jobs as cooks and valets and positions such as that, they said that I want to be part of this struggle. And in fact, in every challenge and in every war that our country has faced, blacks have stepped forward. It's nothing new. It's in our DNA as well. We are Americans, and we protect this country as well. Now, the effort to train black pilots was fought by segregationists with great fervor. Scientific arguments were put forward in publications claiming that blacks could not handle such complex skills as flying aircraft. In part, you'll love this, because the black brain was smaller than that of a white person. This was put forward by quote-unquote scientists. This challenge was therefore most important in order to move towards equality of the races, because if these positions, if these misbeliefs, if these lies were able to remain in place, we would never have an opportunity to have a Barack Obama, for instance. Now, the black press, the churches, political leadership, academics pushed the issue. Traction was finally obtained with their efforts and with the effort of Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt bought into the struggle for the Tuskegee Airmen and the ability to fly. And she talked to her husband, and she wouldn't let him say no. It's sort of like, her husband was the president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And as has been said before and will be said again, elections have consequences. Eleanor was in the White House, and she was able to convince her husband that the Tuskegee program was an important one. Tuskegee became a reality, and there was a tough vetting and a training process that washed most of the candidates out. But even with that, 926 pilots graduated training at Tuskegee Army Flying School between 1941 and 1946, receiving their wings. These pilots were supported by approximately 10 to 15,000 military and civilian men and women who served the flight and ground services and roles at the air bases. A pilot cannot get off the ground if the ground crew, if the engineers, if the people checking the planes and tightening the screws and making sure that they can stay in the air don't do their job. So you always have to remember, they may get a lot of credit, but it takes a village to fly a plane. Even when the training was complete, the powers within the Pentagon resisted the idea of deploying the Tuskegee Airmen. Ultimately, however, the 99th Pursuit Squadron, commanded by General B.O. Davis Jr., himself the son of the first black general of the Army, was deployed. Later, 2 additional fighter squadrons were also deployed, with General Davis commanding what became the 332nd Fighter Group. These units flew missions in North Africa, in Italy, and in Germany. The 99th, however, led the way to become famous as the Red Tails, for the color of the paint on the tails of their planes. But more importantly, for their effective support that they provided to bomber crews. When they began giving support, close air support, to bomber crews, the percentage of planes being lost was 60%. So if you sent out 10 airplanes, 10 bombers to go bombing, the average was 4 would come back. The 6 that didn't would have crews that would go down and be lost. The 99th Pursuit Squadron took a different approach. They said, we're going to stay with those planes. We're going to protect those planes. We're not going to be drawn off to become flaming heroes going after zeros. We're going to bring those bombers to their sites, and we're going to take them home. I'm proud to tell you that 2 of those 926 black pilots trained at Tuskegee were my father, Joseph Whiten, and my uncle, George Lynch. My dad was part of the 43K TE, and he was assigned to, as a bomber pilot, attached to the 477 Bomber Group. My uncle George Lynch was part of 44 FSE, and he served as a member of the 99th Pursuit Squadron. He was a red tail. He flew combat missions in Rhineland, North Apennines, and Po Valley. You know, my cousins, the children of George Lynch, and my brothers and I have always considered it a great honor to have had dads who were such important parts of and honorable parts of the American history that we've all experienced. They were men of courage, of intelligence, and honor. They lived lives of dignity, often in the face of indignity, due to the pervasive racism that was the rule of the day. We have children, a child of Tuskegee Airmen here, Darlene DeFore. Her father was a Tuskegee Airman. He has since left us. We have the wife of a Tuskegee Airman, and that's Amelia Montgomery, whose husband was a Tuskegee Airman. He has left us. Mr. Montgomery, when he returned to the United States, he wasn't done, as most of the airmen weren't done. He, in fact, was one of Martin Luther King's bodyguards on the March to Selma. Yes. So this is the type of individuals that were in the Tuskegee Airmen. This is the type of individuals who made that history. These were the individuals that persevered the racism of the day to overcome. Now, you're going to view a video of Tuskegee Airman Herbert Thorpe. Mr. Thorpe is 98 years old. As most of the Tuskegee Airmen, they're in their mid to late 90s, those that are still with us. He lives in Rome, New York, and was unable to make the trip down to the city based upon weather and his health. So I had our historian, Michael Joseph, sit down with Mr. Thorpe, and he videoed a conversation. I am going to share with you a portion of that conversation in a video. I hope you will find it interesting. It is certainly historical because the man that you see is part of history. Thankfully, he's still with us because most of them are not. Mr. Thorpe was a bomber pilot trained to fly B-25 aircraft. He was attached to the 477 composite group, as was my father. Mr. Thorpe, in the video, will reference his brother. What he does not say is that his brother was a member of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, the famous Red Tails, and he was killed while deployed in Italy. The last time Mr. Thorpe saw him, he'll tell you the last time he saw him. When Mr. Thorpe left the military, much like the other airmen, they didn't stop. They didn't stop being important to our society, to our community, to our nation. Mr. Thorpe became an engineer. And it's very interesting to note that he was involved in the development of our present-day air traffic control system. That's what that engineer worked on, one of the many things. So I invite you to view Mr. Thorpe's video and to learn a little bit about him and the kind of people that Tuskegee Airmen were.
I remember when he used to tell me stories. He lift me up and placed me gently on his knee. You know, his eyes would come alive with every tale he told. And every word.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the people here at the New York Law School. I did a little research to find out more about the New York Law School. I heard the name, but I didn't know a lot about it, and I found out that it's a very prestigious law school. Anybody that watches TV remembers Judge Judy. She's a graduate of New York Law School.
Oh.
But after I passed my gunnery training, I was sent back to Tuskegee. And from Tuskegee, now I was sent to Midland Field in Texas to begin bombardier navigator training, because I was going to be trained as a twin engine pilot eventually. I passed the bombardier navigator, and at the end of my bomb nav training, the group that went through that training, we were commissioned at Midland Airfield December 1944, I received my commission, second lieutenant. Nowhere to go would send us but back to Tuskegee because the Army at that time would not integrate flight crews. So there was no place for us to go. They sent us back to Tuskegee. So I returned to Tuskegee in early 45. And then I began what they call advanced flying training. They had set up a classes for twin engine pilots. That's what I trained in this aircraft here. It's a B-25. And I qualified as a B-25 pilot. It was during the training period at Tuskegee Advanced Flying that I heard of the passing of my brother. I would like to refer to him at this time. After my brother enlisted, I only saw him once.
Yeah.
He had been to Tuskegee. He went through all three stages, and after advanced training, his advanced flying training, he was qualified as a combat fighter pilot. And those pilots were sent to pre-combat training in Walterboro, South Carolina. The last time I saw my brother was he had flown back to Tuskegee in a P-40 aircraft, a trainer, because they had front and back seat. Ordinarily, the P-40 only has one pilot, but the training aircraft had a front seat and a back seat. And I flew with, my brother said, "Come on, I'm going to take you up and we're going to fly around in the P-40. I couldn't believe the P-40 was going to get off the ground. It had tin sides and a tin floor. I said, "This thing is not going to fly." He said, "Well, I'm going to fly it." And he took me up and they did all kinds of maneuvers. I said, "This plane's coming apart." I said, "No." He brought me back down and flying it. And we spent, I think we had dinner together at Tuskegee Institute. And he got on the bus and went back to Walterboro, went back to South Carolina. That was the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
So after I had gotten back to Tuskegee, I completed my twin engine pilot. I was qualified as a twin engine pilot in the fall of 1945, October 1945. Because there were a couple of classes that I had missed because I had gone back to Brooklyn. My mother passed in June of 45, so I went back to Brooklyn for my mother's service memorial. And came back to Tuskegee, then I stayed at Tuskegee through 45 and into 46. The war had ended in 45, actually. That time in 45 and late 45 and 46, they were starting to ship people out of Tuskegee because they were shutting down the cadet school. And a lot of the twin engine pilots went to Kentucky and Illinois, places like that. And some of them were assigned to 477th Bomb Group and remained at Godman Field. And it was there, of course, they refer to the Godman Field Mutiny, that those pilots refused to go to the segregated officers club. And they were court-martialed, about 100 of them, court-martialed. They lost their honorable discharges and all their retirement privileges and so forth.
My goodness.
And they eventually got them back over many, many years.
Yeah.
They eventually got all that returned to them, but they had lost it in the meantime. But I didn't want to go to, I said, I don't want to go off to Kentucky. I elected to leave the service and I went back to Brooklyn.
Yeah. So that was after the war. This is
after the war.
45 or 46?
46 now.
46.
Because I got out in 46, April 46.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I stayed over during the fall of 45, 46. Winter, rather, 45, 46. And I returned to New York City. I was discharged in Long Island and went back to Brooklyn. And then I heard about the GI Bill, and I signed up for the GI Bill. And I had to take a couple of extra classes because in high school I hadn't taken some of the classes that they were required to go to engineering school. Trigonometry was one of them, and physics was the other one. So I went to school at night while I was working, and took those two and took the Regents. And I scored real high on the Regents. I got a 90 on one and a 100 on the other. And they took me into the engineering school at NYU, and I graduated from NYU in '51 with a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering. And in the meantime, I had been working at the Sperry Gyroscope Company while I was still going to school. I wanted to become assigned to have an engineering position. And there was some advertised at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I signed up for that. I eventually was accepted. And I joined the engineering facility, we call it shipboard engineers, at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and that's where I worked until I heard that the Navy Yard was closing. And I wanted to get away from there, and I looked for a place, and I wound up at Rome Air Development Center. During cadet training at Tuskegee Army Airfield, they had a cadre of African American nurses who took care of the young cadets.
Yeah. Della Rainey.
Yeah.
One of the leaders in that group.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And there were African American young women who trained as pilots, but they weren't allowed to fly for the U.S. Army. They flew for the Canadians. They transported military planes from overseas over to England, and they ferried. They call them ferrying, but that's what they did.
Yeah.
So there were a group of African American women that you very seldom hear about.
We can get them from them are historic, are instructional, and are inspirational. Dean Crowell said that there's a lot of people around the school that made everything possible that we've done here, and one of them was Jorge Rodriguez. Anything I've done around the school in terms of events, I've done with Jorge as my right-hand man, as my running buddy, as the person that made it possible for me to look good. And I want to thank you, sir, for the work that you do. He is a veteran, by the way. He is a lawyer, and he is a very good man and a father. Okay. Anyway, next on the program, you're going to meet Dennis Creary. He's a senior IT executive in the financial and technology service area, currently an account director at Oracle. Along with being on the Manhattan Council Scouting Board, you may get a theme. Antonio is also on that board, as am I. He is president and CEO of Blacks on Wall Street, Incorporated. Finally, he is also currently involved in gathering support for the Tuskegee Flight Program. This is a program whose goal is to find, develop, and train African American pilots. That's an amazing goal. It's something that is appropriate for the next step in the Tuskegee experience. So we're very proud of him and thankful for the work that he does, and I'd ask him to give a few remarks at this time. We have just broke his phone.
Well, you make a great entrance. Let me just start quickly by saying I'm really proud of the scouts that came out today, taking time on Friday, when I know you'd rather be sitting somewhere playing a video game or doing TikToks or whatever it is. How many scouts are here? 8?
Yep.
You're a Cub Scout? Right, I'll still ask you to stand. I'm going to ask all the scouts to stand. I'm going to ask the Cub Scout to sit. And if you're on the right-hand side, you can sit. Okay? Now, why am I doing this? There's a statistic that has bothered me that has now driven in our black and brown community. Yeah? That 6 out of 8 black or brown children, male, will be incarcerated before the age of 21. Right? And that's why I get involved in trying to create programs to change that trajectory so that you know you have a community surrounding you so that that does not have to be applied. You would say. So, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As my good mate, Honorable Judge Whiten said, my name is Dennis Creary. I'm really pleased that you asked me to, I don't make speeches, I just speak, but to speak here on this very auspicious occasion. Definitively want to thank Dean Anthony Kroll as well. I think it's remarkable that you were able to accomplish putting up a wall dedicated to the Tuskegee Airmen in the midst of a still raging pandemic. Okay, so definitely thanks to you. Really also happy that we have some honored guests here as well. Those are shoulders that we stand on, and it's our duty to make our shoulders broad enough so these youngsters can stand on them in the future. I worked on Wall Street, still selling in the IT industry. In late, I want to say 2008, early 2009, there was a massive crash in the market. Subprime housing brought the market down to its lows. There's one thing that all of us who were black and in the IT and finance field realized is that our numbers were decimated. 75% of those who were made redundant and let go were black. Now, when you're selling to Wall Street, it doesn't necessarily mean you're on Wall Street. There's sales supporting Wall Street as well, right? So it was across all ranks, lawyers, custodial, sales individuals, etc. So I made up my mind then that when I had the opportunity and the wherewithal, I would start an organization called Blacks on Wall Street. And that's what I did 7 years ago. Working with my partner back in New York, Mellon, we started Blacks on Wall Street with the goal of decreasing the financial gap between black and white America. And I would focus on kids. So we focus on high school juniors and seniors. We do internships, scholarships, mentorship programs, and we just started during this pandemic placement service as well. So when they get out of university, we can place them into a job in IT or in finance. And that is, that's the goal that I like to. And I like to give this example that whatever is happening in the US against us as black and brown individuals is not just a US phenomenon, it's global. The only thing that separates me, being English, from you, being African American, is my ship landed in Jamaica and then carried us to the UK. And your ship landed on this shore. But we have the similar experiences, whether you are in the US, you're in the UK, France, Germany, you speak with anyone, you have these common experiences. Okay? So it's not uncommon that we would have similar experiences in battle. We all went to fight for during World War I, which is where I like to really start. We all were drafted in or volunteered in many cases to eagerly fight for the mother country, so to speak, right? The British West Indies Regiment was founded. In the US, you had a number of black troops that went overseas as well. to fight for that particular country, even though you wouldn't be accepted in that country when you came back. Yeah. So that's why I'm honored to pay my respects to those who came before me. Yeah. I'm literally flying on their wings, so to speak. And as you know, our wings have been tested from the time the first craft left the shores of Africa. Okay? These sea crafts carried us to foreign lands that only wanted us for one thing and one thing only, and that was our labor. And these wings over 400 years have been tested. They've been tested in bondage. They were tested during a failed experiment called Reconstruction after slavery ended in the US. They've been singed, burned, and hung in the South, whilst their wings were clipped in the North. But our wings, like that wall, are indomitable. And through sheer determination, these wings took flight in World War I. There was a rule in the US and in the UK during the First World War, 1914 to 1918, that yes, the colored individuals could fight in a war, but they should not be in combat. There was a young gentleman, must have been about 19 years old, from the United States. His name was Eugene Bullard. He wants to fight properly, and he wants to join the United States Air Force. And they said, absolutely not. So I don't know where he got his courage from, or the thought that he was determined to fly. So he went to France, and he fought for the French in World War I. He was so successful, he had the most kills, the most downed aircraft, that the French had a nickname for him. They called him the Black Swallow of Death, Black Bird of Death. Right? He received 10 medals, including the most prestigious, the highest honor that you can get in the French army, the Rue de la Légion d'Honneur. That's the Legion of Honor. While he was doing his heroics in France, an American fighting for France, there was a young West Indian, Jamaican, named was William Robinson Clark. He joined the Royal Air Force. He was the first black pilot joining the Royal Air Force. So these two gentlemen, Eugene and William, were the first to do this. And when they came back from the war in their respective areas, the countries that they visited looked pretty much like it does now. Why? Everyone was wearing a mask. They came back during the Spanish flu, which decimated our communities in more ways than you can imagine, because our deaths were not counted. We weren't treated at hospitals. So many of us died alone at home during the Spanish flu. So history has a way of repeating itself. Now, there were also a lot of babies born during the years following the pandemic. They themselves then would face their own war, World War II. And some really strong names came out. There was a Roscoe Brown who joined up with the Tuskegee Airmen, which was, as Judge Whiten stated, really prestigious air training program for our black individuals. And he was honored to go and fight for his country. The Tuskegee Airmen did not just include Americans, they included people from Haiti, from Trinidad, from the Dominican Republic as well. And they were the famed Red Tails. Another gentleman, Colonel Lee Archer, won the Distinguished Flying Cross. And that's like the highest honor you can get in the Air Force. And you might think, well, was he the only? No. These gentlemen, these pilots, flew 15,000 combat missions. 150 distinguished flying crosses were bestowed on that group. And that, I will give an applause for that. Now, I'll ask you why you were called a later. Okay? And then they came back to a country that promised them that all who fought for the country would have the ability to own a home. You would get the GI, through the GI Bill, you'll be able to buy your first home. They neglected to mention that that did not include black and brown individuals. So whilst a lot of those who were fighting and dying and shedding the same blood on foreign soils came back, we were treated quite differently. And again, that's why I get involved. I'm the chairman of the Negro Ensemble Company, because I think we tell our story best, our story, our history best through stories. Right? I'm involved in the Boy Scouts group. One of our goals, for the sole purpose of doing that, is our numbers in the Boy Scout reflect the United States. They're small. And it should be. It's a great program to expose our kids to different experiences, life experiences. So our goal is quite simply to create 10 troops above 103rd Street. Okay? And I'm not ashamed to ask for money, so yeah, we do need that. Right? We will need help in getting that done, but we'll be approaching schools, churches, all right, and other organizations that cater to us. And we will need financial help, because what might seem like a small amount of money to a kid on the upper or lower east side to pay $200 per year, that's a mountain to climb for someone who doesn't have that means, right? And there should not be a reason. We're excluded from so much that there should not be a reason why we should be excluded from Boy Scouts as well. Okay? And so that's, I'm here. I have a favor to ask those who are listening and those who are here. I just ask that you be resolute as that wall we just dedicated to the Tuskegee Airmen. Resolute in your convictions to do better, to uplift those who will be coming after you. You need to be those wings that people will soar on. Your kids, scouts, it's going to be your responsibility. You should be up here in a few years, right, trying to uplift as well. Never forget to give back to your group, your society. It doesn't take much. All it takes is time. It does not take money. It takes time. You can start now by mentoring someone, and that's why the Scouts is an excellent program for you to do that. Okay? So, I mean, like that wall, we're strong. We carry a lot of burden. There's a lot of us throw the wall holds up the building, a lot on our shoulders. But like that wall, we shall not be moved. Thank you.
One thing Dennis Creary did not mention is that the scouting program is now girls and boys. And in fact, one of the young ladies here today is his daughter. Will you stand up? I'll draw up. Maybe she has glad not to embarrass her, but I can do that. You're lucky to have this man. You can sit down now, I'm sorry. But Dr. Keith Taylor is here, who's an amazing advocate in Harlem and in the city. He should be in the city council. He's a leader. And he's got a young man who is part of this group here today also. So parenting is about giving your kids direction. Tuskegee Airmen are about giving our country direction and our people direction. It just continues, no matter how you go. All right, our next individual that I'd like to introduce you is Lan Gray. We brought you the financial part of the world. Well, now I'd like to introduce to you a well-known playwright, director, producer, filmmaker. He has written, directed, and produced off-Broadway plays, including the hit Black Angels Over Tuskegee. I've seen the play 3 times. Be on the lookout for his latest creation, Cowboy. It's a historical drama telling the tale of the first black U.S. deputy marshal. He's one of the most creative people that I've ever met. He is one of the most dedicated people that I've ever met in terms of telling the stories of his people and of making sure that we can proliferate the work that we have done in the artistic venue. So I'd like Leon Gray to come forward and give his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoa. Contact from a Styx back, sailing through the blue. The gallant sons of the 99th brown man tried and true. We are the heroes of the night. To hell with the Axis might. Fight, 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 fight. Fighting 99. That is just, I'm a little loud here. My theater voice. That is just the opening part of the Tuskegee Airmen fight song. And my actors get an opportunity to present that before each show. It is such an honor to be here tonight for this monumental event. I've had the opportunity to meet Tuskegee Airmen all around the world with my stage play about them, Black Angels over Tuskegee. And I'm so appreciative to come here and just tell you about that journey of that play and where it is right now and where it's going. I wrote the show in 2007. I was looking for something new to write while I was living in Los Angeles. So I got home one day and I was just flipping through the channels and I stopped on this one particular channel. And there were these men in their 80s and 90s walking up on the stage to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor, the Tuskegee Airmen. So I was so moved by these men in their 80s and 90s walking up on stage full of energy. I called my friend up and I said, you know what? I think I want to write a play about the Tuskegee Airmen. And at that time, there had never been a play. HBO had done a film with Lawrence Fishburne and Cuba Gooding Jr., but never a play. So I said, I want to be the first to write a stage play about the Airmen. And he came back and he said, well, there's a Tuskegee Airman who lives right next to him. So I was like, what? So I got the opportunity to sit down and talk with this gentleman. And he never talked about all the medals and the awards and the recognition that they received or didn't receive. He talked about the brotherhood he created, the friends he lost, the friends he would never see again. And I knew that's the angle that I wanted to go and telling my story about the Tuskegee Airmen. So I wrote the show, and it became this huge hit out in Los Angeles. And we were selling out every night. And someone said, you know what, you guys should try to get this show in New York City. So I said, well, theater in New York City is very expensive. So we raised enough money to present the show for 2 to 3 weeks. So it's going to be an exhibition for 2 to 3 weeks. And we didn't have money for advertising, so we got out in the streets and we hustled, went in Times Square, got uniforms, passed out flyers. And lo and behold, opening night, standing room only. Everyone wanted to come and hear the story of the Tuskegee Airmen. So that 2 to 3 week exhibition turned into a 10-year run of Broadway. Yeah. And throughout the year, we've had the opportunity to take this show all around the world, shedding light on the Tuskegee Airmen. We've been to Bermuda, St. Thomas, British Columbia. We've had the opportunity to perform the show for the U.S. Army. We performed the show for the NFL. New York Jets came out twice. The Buffalo Bills, the San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers came to see the show before the pandemic hit. We were in talks to do the show for all 32 NFL teams. Because it's such an inspirational, motivational piece, all the coaches wanted their players to see this show. Many of the airmen, because of the play, became real good friends of mine. And coming out to see the show 3, 4, 5 times, you came back to see it several times. It's one of those pieces that sticks to you. Back in Los Angeles, before we came to New York, Big O was what called. He was the first Tuskegee Airman to actually come out and support the play. He saw it at least 10 times. And he told me sometimes he would come to the show and didn't tell us. He would sit in the lobby and just close his eyes and listen to the actors. And he said they reminded him of when he was back in Tuskegee. So he loved that moment about the play. In LA, Brother Ted Lumpkin, he always said this show, Black Angels over Tuskegee, was one of the best, if not the best, presentation of them, the Tuskegee Airmen, that he had ever seen film on television. That was always very, very personal to us. Here in New York City, we got to be very close with the New York chapter. Brother Julius Freeman, he passed away recently. He used to always come to the show and he would say, Leon, I have a rap group and we want to perform an intermission. I'm like, okay. So he's a Tuskegee Airman, still full of that energy. He would get on stage and rap with his grandson and stuff. So that was always a beautiful time for us. And also Brother Roscoe Brown, he came out to see the show several times. And after the first time he saw it, he came up and said, okay, well, Leon, I got some notes. I said, okay. He said, okay, well, the Tuskegee Airmen, we stood this way and we saluted that way. I said, okay, well, we're going to get it perfect. So he took the time and he took time out of his schedule to teach the actors the proper way to salute and stand like a real Tuskegee Airman. And, you know, those were the airmen. You know, doesn't matter how many years have passed, their minds were still sharp, believing back in the 40s, as they believe right now, that the antidote to racism is excellence in performance. That's who they were. Yes. This was a celebration for everyone who was told you can, because the Tuskegee Airmen are living proof that you can. It affected my life not only as a writer, but as a human being, and I will continue to tell their story. We lost many of the airmen over the years, but we still have some left. And I always say it's important that we should give these men their roses while they're still here. Toward the end of Black Angels over Tuskegee, one of the actors, he comes out and he gives a speech that kind of sums up everything about the airmen who have passed and who are still living and why did he survive. And I want to read that passage to you from the play. He says, we were joined by 3 other fighter squadrons from Tuskegee, the 100, 301st, and 302nd, to form the all-Negro 332nd Fighter Group. All-Negro, still separated, but we were good. The best bomber escort unit in the whole fleet. We took pride that we were doing so well that we decided we had to let everyone know, everyone, the Germans and the enemy that crossed our path when the 332nd was on station. So we painted the tails of all 72 of our P-51 airplanes red. Reddish paint we could find in Italy. I always thought I should have died back then with them. Why did God choose me to live? But then I realized, as long as I'm here, they're here. My Black angels, looking over my shoulders, protecting me, protecting this story. A group of men from different parts of the country became a family and made a difference to a people. A difference to a people. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. We may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. Tuskegee Airmen, congratulate you. Salute. Thank you. Woo.
Just from that few minutes of land break, I think it's obvious that if you have a chance to see one of his plays, cowboy, that's one that I suggest is the newest, or see him on stage or any of his productions, this is something we want to do. It's not to be missed. At this time, I'm going to make a presentation, and it's made to New York Law School. It's made partially because of Julius Freeman, who was just mentioned. It's made partially because of Julius Rockwell, who's a member of our chapter, who was given a medal that belonged to Julius Freeman. And with the agreement of his daughter, that medal is going to be gifted to New York Law School. We made part of that wall. In April of 2006, the United States Congress voted to award a Congressional Gold Medal to the Tuskegee Airmen. On March 29, 2007, the medal was awarded. The citation in part read, "In recognition of their unique military record with inspired revolutionary reform in the armed forces." Inspired revolutionary reform in the armed forces, and nothing less than revolutionary reform was necessary then, and ladies and gentlemen, it's still necessary, not just in the military, but in our communities, in our Congress, in our politics. There's a lot of work to be done, but the spirit of the Tuskegee Airmen is the kind of spirit that's necessary for us to move forward and get it done. And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy that this wall is in New York Law School, because we are training lawyers here. And lawyers have a lot of power, at least the ability to exercise power in a positive way for their community, for our country, for our world. And it's our hope in this school. And we've made efforts by having something called Community Days, where we expose our students to the effects of discrimination and equal or unequal treatment of anyone. We try to sensitize them to the need to be part of the solution and never part of the problem. It all is very connected. And having that wall, it is my hope that as our students pass the wall and they glance at it, or they stop for a moment and think about it, that they will be emboldened to go, to strive, to fight, to use their abilities in court, in their community, to make change, to make revolutionary reform of our country. The gold medal went to the Smithsonian Museum. There was only one of those. The bronze replicas that were made were given to 350 surviving airmen and their widows who were at the presentation in Washington, D.C. I have a medal here, again, that belonged to Julius Freeman and is being given to the law school to become part of that wall. And it is given in the memory of the young black men who overcame adversity to change a nation and to inspire future generations. Dean Crowell.
This is great. I'm so pleased to receive this on behalf of the law school. Dean Hub, Jorge, come on up here. Jarian snuck out, unfortunately, but come up on behalf of the law school. Let's all of us accept this. It's beautiful, and it has so much meaning. Look how beautiful that is. We will put that up, and we'll do a picture of both sides of it, so we make sure that everyone can see it and understand it and recognize its meaning. Oral Hope is our associate dean and registrar who effectively presides over the Hall of Superheroes, because your office is at the end of the Hall of Superheroes, or at the beginning of it. And we appreciate it. And Jorge, it was so nice what Judge Boynton said about you. You do so much for all of our events. And Jarian James, who was just here, is one of our key attorneys in our racial justice project. And so I wish he had just stayed 2 minutes longer. In any event, this has been a magnificent event, a very, very passionate set of presentations and sets of remarks, not only by Judge Whiten, but by our other guests, and just incredible. And I wish I could see the play again. I think we should bring it back here. It's great. And Mr. Creary, thank you so much for your very meaningful remarks, and we look forward to building a relationship with you as well. And how proud you must be, not only of your daughter, but of our colleagues in the Scouts. It's great. So we are proud to have this display in New York Law School. We're proud to be a key partner and supporter of the chapter, which I look forward to the annual gala every year, which is typically on a beautiful fall Saturday afternoon. And soon, let's hope next year we can actually have that big event here again. But until then, we thank you very much, and we will always be here standing proud with you and being supportive and being the wind beneath those wings. Thank you.
I do want to thank you all for coming, but I want to also thank I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my daughter, Kimberly Whiten, who agreed to step forward and live stream this event for us when we didn't have someone. And she's been doing a wonderful job. Amelia Montgomery, did you want to say
Yes, I would like, in support of women, there were women with the served with the Tuskegee Airmen. There were not only men, but there were women. And we're celebrating the 101st birthday of Lieutenant Nancy Lieutenant Cologne on Sunday. Her birthday is actually September 29th, but we're celebrating it on this coming Sunday. So don't think that it was just men. There were women. Only thing, they won't call them Tuskegee Air Women. They have to use the men acronym, but it's okay because they did their jobs also. They were nurses. They were, some did train as pilots, but World War II, they weren't allowed to fly with the men, but they were pilots. There were people who did the parachutes. There were all areas of work with mechanics. There were mechanics, photographers, administration. So when we say Tuskegee Airmen, do not leave out the women, okay?
Yeah. Actually, Mr. Thorpe mentioned the women. Mr. Thorpe mentioned the women. I want to thank you all for being part of the program. I want to thank you all that have viewed the live stream. I hope that you will continue to learn more about the Tuskegee Airmen, if you don't know, and the women as well, and the young people. And again, enjoy your day, but never give up the fight.